The city that produced E.T., Top Gun, and Guns N' Roses was the same one where crack cocaine gutted entire neighborhoods, and the sky exceeded federal toxic air limits over 150 days a year. This was life in the 1980s in Los Angeles, where 200,000 people kept the world's greatest dream factory running, while the city around it was quietly coming apart. Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Universal filled the 1980s with record-breaking hits, but the real engine of Hollywood's dominance ran deeper than red carpets or opening weekend headlines. In 1982, E.T. the Extraterrestrial soared past $399 million at the U.S. box office. Back to the Future pulled in over $210 million, and Top Gun delivered $176 million in 1986 alone. These films didn't just entertain the world, they powered an economic machine that stretched across Los Angeles. Behind every blockbuster, a workforce of nearly 200,000 people kept the gears turning. Studio payrolls swelled throughout the 1980s. Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Universal together employed about 18,000 full-time staff by the end of the decade, up from 12,000 at its start. But the reach extended far beyond the studio gates. Set builders, camera operators, editors, costume designers, and electricians all counted among the 78,000 union craft workers who made the spectacle possible. The Screen Actors Guild, and AFTR, registered over 71,000 on-camera performers, from leading stars to background extras. The numbers reveal the scale. Each year, Los Angeles studios produced around 1,500 feature films and over 3,000 television episodes. Every shoot meant weeks of work for hundreds, sometimes thousands, of people. Ancillary jobs, post-production houses, talent agencies, and location scouts added another 150,000 workers to the city's creative economy by 1985. For every face on a movie poster, there were hundreds whose names never appeared in the credits. For many, the dream started with a single chance, an aspiring extra standing in line at dawn outside a studio lot, hoping to land a day's work on a crowd scene or a walk-on role. The odds were long, but the promise was real, a foothold in the world's greatest dream factory, however fleeting. The glamour of the screen was built on this hidden labor, on the ambitions and paychecks of thousands whose stories rarely made the news. In the 1980s, Los Angeles was the only city where a single film could employ a small army and a summer's box office could ripple through an entire economy. On a single mile of Sunset Boulevard, the night could launch a legend. The Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy Theater, and the Troubadour formed a circuit where new bands hustled for a slot and a shot at stardom. Promoters like Derek Johnson at the Whiskey kept a master list, part agency bookings, part sidewalk flyer economy. Young musicians handed out hand-cut posters, hoping a packed house might catch the eye of a label scout or a manager with industry pull. The clubs ran on rotation, the Whiskey's metallic backlit stage for Friday headbanger nights, the Roxy's upstairs bar for after-hours deals, the Troubadour's late sets for upstart acts willing to pay for a chance. A roadie might lug gear up the Roxy's narrow stairs one night, then work the Troubadour's open mic slot the next, chasing tips and a few comped drinks. For bookers, every night was a balancing act, keeping the schedule fresh, weighing crowd draw against label pressure, and making sure the bar sold enough to cover the band's guarantee. Tuesday, Battle of the Bands at Gazzari's drew A&R representatives from Elektra and Geffen, while Thursday Guitar Hero showcases at the Roxy packed the floor with teens in spandex and leather, hair teased high and eyeliner thick. Weekend attendance across the three main clubs could top 8,000, with as many as 100 bands moving through in a single week. The Strip's flyer economy turned buzz into bookings. A band that packed the Whiskey on Friday might headline the Roxy Saturday, then close out Sunday at the Troubadour. If the crowd kept growing, a manager like Doc McGee might step in, and within months, MTV would spin their latest video. That pipeline minted names like Mötley Crüe, Poison, and Ratt. In 1985, Guns N' Roses played their first West Coast gig at the Troubadour. 2 years later, their debut album, Appetite for Destruction, was climbing the Billboard 200. By 1988, it had sold around 18 million copies in the United States alone, according to RIAA data, and over 30 million worldwide by industry estimates. The strip was more than a party, it was a proving ground. Every night, the stakes were real. Bands gambled rent money for a slot, roadies hustled for steady work, and bookers weighed the next big thing against the risk of an empty house. Behind the neon and the noise, the strip's ecosystem was a machine, one that could turn a local act into a global headline, or leave them broke by Monday morning. On weekday mornings in Los Angeles in the 1980s, the city's freeways became rivers of steel stretching from the San Fernando Valley to downtown and beyond. Interstate 405, U.S. Highway 101, Interstate 10, and Interstate 5 carried over 5 million registered vehicles, each one inching through a daily ritual that could swallow up 60 to 90 minutes, one way. For many, the commute was a second job, measured not in miles but in hours spent idling under the relentless sun or the dull orange glow of streetlights. Public transit was almost an afterthought. The Metro Rail project broke ground in 1985, but for most Angelenos, the car was not just transportation, it was survival. The cost of this mobility was visible in the AIR. More than 150 days a year, ozone levels spiked past federal safety limits, turning the basin into a haze that stung eyes and left a metallic taste in the back of the throat. EPA data from the decade show that Los Angeles routinely topped national charts for smog, with children and the elderly especially vulnerable to asthma and other respiratory problems. The city's geography, boxed in by mountains, trapped exhaust and heat, baking the pollution into a dense blanket that rarely lifted. Even as new emission standards rolled out, the sheer volume of traffic kept the air thick and gray. For many, the promise of freedom on the open road was paid for with time lost and lungs tested, a daily trade-off that shaped life in the city long before the first subway car ever rolled beneath its streets. Los Angeles in 1980 counted just under 3 million residents, making it the third largest city in the country. But the story was less about numbers and more about the shifting character of its neighborhoods. New arrivals from Mexico, El Salvador, China, Taiwan, and Vietnam brought languages and customs that transformed entire districts. In East Los Angeles and Boyle Heights, Spanish-language markets, bakeries, and murals filled the blocks, while Monterey Park became the first American suburb with a majority Chinese-American population by the decade's end. The census captured the headline, hundreds of thousands of immigrants settling each year, but the change played out in street-level details, bilingual storefronts, new churches, and the scent of unfamiliar spices drifting from kitchens. Some neighborhoods held onto their old rhythms, but others remade themselves almost overnight. Monterey Park's city council meetings switched to bilingual notices. In Boyle Heights, mariachi bands played in public plazas, and family-run taquerias opened next to Japanese-owned shops that dated back to the 1940s. The population boom strained schools and housing, but it also layered the city with new traditions. By the late 1980s, Los Angeles wasn't just growing, it was becoming a patchwork of worlds, each with its own pulse, woven together by the movement of people searching for a foothold and a future. In south-central Los Angeles, the arrival of crack cocaine in 1984 set off a chain reaction that changed the city's streets almost overnight. Dealers worked corners day and night, selling $5 rocks to customers from every walk of life. Gangs like the Crips and the Bloods, already established in these neighborhoods, seized on the new drug trade. Their rivalry fractured into dozens of cliques, each fighting for control of a few blocks. The violence escalated fast. By the late 1980s, drive-by shootings and turf wars were daily realities, and the city's homicide count pushed past 1,000 a year by the early 1990s. Community organizers like Angela Williams spent their days trying to keep kids in after-school programs and out of the crossfire. She remembers mothers weeping on porches, police helicopters circling overhead, and the steady stream of funerals that followed. In the shadow of Hollywood's bright lights, these neighborhoods lived with the constant threat of loss, their stories rarely making the evening news. The summer of 1984 turned Los Angeles into a global stage. The Olympic torch lit up the Memorial Coliseum, and for 16 days, the city hosted athletes from 140 countries across venues like the Rose Bowl, Long Beach Arena, and the Santa Monica Swim Stadium. Instead of the usual deficit, the Games closed with a surplus of $225 million, a record that stunned even the International Olympic Committee. The afterglow lingered, fueling a citywide fitness craze. Jane Fonda's workout tapes flew off shelves, selling nearly 17 million copies and inspiring living room aerobics from Sherman Oaks to South Gate. Gyms and sporting goods stores saw sales spike as Angelenos chased the Beachbody ideal. Meanwhile, the Lakers transformed the Forum into a nightly spectacle. Magic Johnson's no-look passes and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook powered 5 NBA championships in the decade, with Hollywood stars packing courtside seats. For a moment, the city felt united, drawn together by spectacle, sweat, and the promise of something bigger than the daily grind. Los Angeles still wrestles with the same divides, glamour alongside struggle, and dreams shadowed by reality. Its skyline keeps rising, but the city's real story plays out in its neighborhoods. The 1980s didn't vanish. They echo in every traffic jam, every new arrival, every hope and risk that defines LA today.